Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk building, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I
button?
thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by Mountain Ops, making outdoor energy and performance nutrition to make you a stronger and healthier elk hunter. They have a full line of hunting-related supplements, including meal replacement shakes, multivitamins, pre-workout fuel, and post-workout recovery. And my favorite, their new performance protein bars that, by the way, are packed with 270 calories and 20 grams of protein, but contain less than 6 grams of sugar. Visit mountainops.com to learn more and to order, and be sure to use the promo code ELKTALK to save on your next order.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
And we have a promo code for Gerber as well. Just use the code ELKTALK to save 20% on your orders at gerbergear.com. And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
Lastly, the University of Elk Hunting online course is a proud partner of the Elk Talk Podcast. And within the University of Elk Hunting online course, you're going to find nearly 60 chapters organized in 17 modules of elk hunting instruction aimed at making you a more successful elk hunter. From planning and e-scouting to calling strategies and packing, every imaginable elk hunting topic is included in the online course. And regardless of your previous elk hunting experience or success, I'm confident the University of Elk Hunting online course will make you a more confident, more successful elk hunter. Just visit elk101.com and use the promo code ELKTALK to save 20% when you sign up for a membership to the University of Elk Hunting online course.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it. All right, well, welcome to another episode of Elk Talk Podcast. This week I am flying solo here. Randy is, I don't know if he's mule deer hunting or antelope hunting, but it's one of the inferior species to elk. He is skipping out, but I brought in a pretty awesome guest I'm excited to visit with today. I've got Bryce Bishop with me, and Bryce is the founder, owner, brains behind PEAX Equipment. That's PEAX Equipment. And you might know Bryce from Sissy Sticks and Anyway, we'll jump right in here. But Bryce, welcome to the Elk Talk podcast.
Thanks, Corey. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great.
Yeah,
It's almost season time, so we're ready to get going.
absolutely. How's the weather? You're over in Bozeman also, right?
Yeah, we are. It's been, I think, like everywhere else, just super hot, super dry, and super smoky from all the fires. It's like last night we got tons of rain, and I wake up this morning and I look out and I still can't see the mountains. So it's just we're just socked in with smoke over here, and it's I'm a little worried about that for elk hunting, but you just have to work with it. So
Yeah, no, it's been a long fire season. I think we got our first fires the first part of July, and it just seemed like the smoke rolled in then and really hasn't left. It's definitely better now than it was. Like you said, it was so thick for a while. You didn't even want to go outside.
yeah,
But yeah, it's funny. My wife, I came home from, I don't remember if I was getting firewood or something, but came home and she was out working in the garden and had a mask on. And so I went out and teased her about COVID. I'm like, hey, I don't think you're going to get anything out here in middle of nowhere in your garden. And so teased her a little bit. And my sister was actually there visiting, and we've got a little skid road that goes to our well down below the garden there. And my sister was walking her dog on the road, and evidently my wife didn't recognize her or whatever, but my sister looked up and said something about, are you afraid of COVID or something? And my wife looked down and didn't know who it was, and she thought somebody was trespassing on her land asking about COVID, and
oh
took her a
man,
minute to recognize there. But yeah, she was wearing a mask because the smoke was so thick outside, it just burns your throat.
yeah, that might be the only thing those masks are good for is blocking all those smoke particles.
Yeah. No, it'll, hopefully, you mentioned getting a lot of moisture last night. We haven't got anything over here in Idaho. Like,
Really?
yeah, even in eastern Idaho, I know they've been getting a little bit, and other places, but man, where we're at in central Idaho, we haven't got anything. It's just been dry and hot.
Yeah, I mean it's been dry and hot for weeks and weeks and weeks here. But at the last, I don't know, week and a half to 2 weeks, we've gotten a handful of storms that have come through and dumped quite a bit of moisture actually. So we're hopeful that that kind of tempers everything down a little bit and gives us a good start to the season. And the grass is starting to actually grow again here, so that's a good sign. And hopefully the high country is doing well, and that moisture will help sustain us through the fall.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's hold off on talking elk hunting plans for a little bit, and let's
Sure.
talk PEAX equipment. Just
Yeah, you bet.
maybe give us a quick background on what it is, where it came from, and I can remember it's been 2 or 3 years ago when you came out with Sissy Sticks
Yeah,
initially.
so it was 2017. It was the fall of 2017 when kind of the idea really just started. My brother and I were in the backcountry hunting elk, and before that trip, he said, "You really need to get a pair of trekking poles." And I was like, "I don't want a pair of trekking poles. Those are for sissies." Um, and he was like, "You really need some." And so I think I went to Walmart of all places on the way out of town, grabbed the cheapest $19 pair of trekking poles I could find on the rack, and off we went, and we were hunting and got a bowl down, and we just started that process of, packing out, and we were coming down a pretty rocky face, and I bent those $19 poles completely in half. I mean, they were done, like completely done. You couldn't salvage them, and the whole rest of the pack out was miserable. But it led to this great conversation about trekking poles, and we just talked about, man, could you make a trekking pole specifically for hunting? And I got home and of course got on Google and put in trekking poles for hunting, and I got 1,000 different hits all over the place. Just everything you can imagine, from again, the super cheap pairs to $230 pairs. And it was a little discouraging at first, but just kind of couldn't let go of that idea of, could you really make a trekking pole specifically for a backcountry hunter? And just started tinkering around with that idea. It took about 6 months to kind of put the very first prototype together. And of course, we were really weight conscious. And so we focused on carbon fiber, to the beginning of all this. And, carbon just doesn't last, especially in that bottom section of the pole. So we broke a lot of different prototypes. And it just was a process of starting to little by little tweak it here, tweak it there. And, over the course of about a year, we just made a lot of changes. And my brother and I just kind of would take them out and test them and break them and tweak it a little bit and take it out and test it and break it. And, after about that year, we just kind of settled in on that combination of carbon fiber upper and middle section, and then like an aerospace grade aluminum in the bottom section. And, we took them out and we didn't break them. So we were like, all right, well, maybe we're onto something finally. And by that time I had kind of gotten connected with you and Randy, and I think I sent you guys the first prototype models, and you guys had kind of tested them and provided some really valuable feedback. And we made a few more tweaks at that point. And then I got connected with Brian Call, and he was taking a trip with Ryan Lampers to New Zealand. And I said, do you mind taking them over there and testing them? And he was really skeptical. Brian, he's super skeptical about everything. But he was like, yeah, all right, we'll try them. And they survived his New Zealand trip. And it was at that point, that was about May of 2018, I think. He came back and went, yeah, we think we can put our stamp of approval on these things. And we just did a few, cosmetic tweaks at that point. And then we launched like 4 months later in August of 2018. And for that first year, we were just the Sissy Sticks trekking pole. We just had one model. We had no idea what we were doing, trying to build an e-commerce brand. I came from, a financial services background, working with property casualty insurance companies and default mortgage servicing firms and hedge funds. And
so a lot of crossover there, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Had zero really engineering background whatsoever. But it was just a passion.
I was going to say, I can remember, when you sent me the first ones, and I was kind of the same process. It was probably, 6 or 7 years ago, I got my first set of trekking poles. And like you, I'd always called them, yuppie sticks or hippie poles, or, the only people I ever saw using them were the granola hikers on established trails. And you could hear the little metal bottoms clicking up through the rocks coming up there. And thought, who would want extra gear just dangling off of their hands? I want to carry my bow. I want to carry my bugle tube.
Right.
And then I used them for the first time. And like you said, on a heavy pack out. And the way that they transfer weight and take weight off of your legs and your knees, especially coming downhill, it was game changer. I started carrying a set with me, and for me, it's kind of the same. I don't use them a lot, but I use them if I'm packing in a long ways and I have my bow strapped to my back. I'll use them to go uphill, or if we kill something, then coming out with a heavy load. But I didn't, I don't just walk around with them all day. And so I didn't want a big set. I just wanted something small and compact and lightweight I could keep in my pack.
Right.
And you sent me the first Sissy stick, and it was completely different than everything I loved about my poles at the time. So I had, a cork hand grip. I had small little wrist straps because I wore them the wrong way, evidently.
Yeah.
And they were a tri-fold, the Z style. So they folded down real small. And then you sent me these ones that didn't fold down. They were a little longer. They were fairly lightweight. The strap on them was way too long. I couldn't even cinch it down, and it was foam on the hand grip. And I'm thinking, there's no way. I don't like them. It's different. It's change. And so I provided you some of that feedback that, the grip's a little different than what I like. And you said, well, you're wearing them wrong. I'm like, no, this is the way to do it. I get way better grip on them this way. And of course, I'd been called out by a few other people for wearing them wrong. And you said, well, we're gonna, we'll be making some changes and take some of your advice into consideration. And then, at the time, like you had mentioned, that was your only product, that one. And so take us through the next little bit then of where you went from there and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah. So, we were just trying to figure it out. It was at that point, we felt like we had a viable product that we could sell, and we had some people that were willing to help us. And so we launched and started fulfilling orders out of the garage, and and then it just kind of took off. And it was one of those things that we just hadn't anticipated. It was going to be more of just a little passion project, a little hobby, little side hustle, just to make some extra income or whatever. And it just exploded on us out of nowhere. And so then we were like, well, what can we do to improve this model of a pole? And where do we really want to take this business as a brand? And I think at that point I think it was January of 2020 at that point. And I got connected with a few more people, Dave Brinker, Jordan Harbertson, Ryan Bassham, Harrison Lindsay, a few other guys that just, have a lot of experience in this industry and a lot of experience of, bringing products to market and branding and, just building an actual brand. And so I took another risk. It was a big risk to reach out to guys like you and Randy at the early stages. I probably should have waited till we had a much better product before I sent you guys a prototype. But, I took that risk with you guys, and I thought, I'm going to take this risk with those guys. And I invited them to be on an advisory board that we created. And to my surprise, they all said yes. And so we started this little advisory board, and there was like 5 guys on it that we have. And I'll never forget, I was trying to show Dave Brinker one time a bunch of these product ideas that I had and some other little prototypey things that I had. And he kind of stopped me in my tracks, and he was like, what are you doing? What are you really trying to become? And I'm like, well, I just want to sell product, right? I just want to come up with cool things and sell it. And he was like, that's not good enough, right? Like, you really have to think about where you're going as a business, what kind of brand you're trying to create, and how you're going to connect with the customer, right? It's not enough just to sell product. You actually have to do something. And so we went through a really big process at that point of just trying to think about who we are as a brand, what direction we're headed, how we're going to kind of build a system of products that work together. And, at that point, we kind of realized that the Sissy Sticks name, although it was disruptive and catchy and, did what it needed to do, right? Nobody could forget the name after they heard it. And we showed the poles being used in really epic places by epic people. And that was enough to sell, a trekking pole. But we really decided we're going to have to go through a rebranding process here to turn Sissy Sticks into a brand that can actually be applied across multiple products. And so we went through a rebranding process, and those guys on our advisory board were really instrumental in helping me go through that process. And that's where, we came up with PEAX equipment. And now we're really focused more on not just trekking poles. That's a big part of our business. It's our flagship product still, but we've got 3 models of poles now, a couple more in the works. And then, we're really transitioning into a brand that develops backcountry hunting equipment, primarily focused around the backcountry campsite. And that's where we're at today.
That's awesome. And I know you now have a folding trekking pole, the Z poles, which are my favorite. And I now have those in my pack everywhere I go. And I've since learned that the The straps that you have on the poles work just fine, and so I used to run my hand, whatever opposite is. I don't even remember anymore because I do it both ways, and I get one in there, like, okay, that's the wrong way. I put it the other way, but
Right.
you can either run your hand up through the strap and then grab the pole, or down through the strap and grab the pole. And I always did it backwards before, and I got good leverage on it, and it worked just great. But as soon as I switched over, it gives me more versatility because I'm able to go uphill and downhill without kind of changing hand position. It's just a slide to the
Right.
top of the pole, and then I was getting blisters in between my thumb and my finger. When I first started using those foam ones, I thought, well, it's the foam, and I really like the cork hand grip. And for whatever reason, it was because of the way I was gripping it
Right.
incorrectly, and no more issue with that. So, like you said, though, there's a difference between a trekking pole that a hiker uses on an established trail for their 30 or 40 pound backpack overnight load, and a trekking pole that you're using going through blowdowns and carrying 100 pounds of elk meat on your back.
Right.
There's a difference. And yeah, so far, and I've abused them. I used them a ton shed hunting with super heavy loads, way in the backcountry, crossing creeks and rivers and everything. And they've held up incredibly well. And to your credit, that combination of the carbon fiber on the upper half makes them lightweight. I don't know. Did you get I know John Abernathy took a picture of me coming off of a stump or a log with a pretty heavy load. And I was amazed. He hit the picture right at the right time, but that pole was bent. It was like bowed
Yeah. Yeah.
significantly, and no issues at all. And then that aluminum bottom, just takes a lot more abuse than carbon. Carbon, you hit it against rocks and blowdowns and
Right.
stuff enough times, and it's going to start cracking. And that
Yeah.
aluminum just allows you to beat them up pretty good. So
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome to see a trekking pole made by hunters for hunters.
Yeah, and like you said, it was a process. The things that work for your hiking crowd, that's staying on established trails, even if they're in the backcountry, they're still on established trails and routes. And a backcountry hunter that might use those trails to get into the backcountry, but quickly deviates from those trails and just is climbing over rocks and stumps and scree fields and everything else. Just the abuse that those poles take is significantly more than what the average, trail hiker is going to put on them. And surprisingly, we figured out the secret formula, I guess. It just works, and so far so good. Our warranty rate on our trekking poles is like 0.2% or something. That's just something incredibly low. And but if anybody does have a problem, we just fix it. We just take care of it. Our trekking poles, to my knowledge, have the most comprehensive warranty in the industry, and there's really never been a situation that we've said no to. When somebody calls us or sends us an email that says, "Hey, I had an issue," and even the guy who let his dog chew all over the handle of it, we just like, well, it happens. We'll send you a new one.
That's
But
awesome.
our goal is just to support the hunting community and hunting in general, and the best way we can do that is to support the hunters and help them out when they have issues. So.
Yeah, I'm just on your website, and the page Who We Are. Our purpose at PEAX has always been focused on protecting the future of outdoorsmen worldwide. And then I love the first of the threefold mission of provide opportunities for others to experience meaningful and lasting connections with the outdoors. And that's huge. And then, you've got support conservation efforts to improve wildlife habitat and increase access to public lands, which Randy and I are always stressing the importance of building that bigger pie, and those last two
Yeah.
definitely fall into that. But, there's a lot of people, especially in the last year and a half, that have got into the outdoors. They wanted to explore more and just, make those connections in the outdoors. And so I think, what David Brinker said to you about who are you, where are you going, make all the awesome product you want to, but you have to have a purpose. You have to have a direction.
Yeah.
And once you have that direction, the product can come easy, but the connection between the product and the brand, I think, comes through that purpose and that mission. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and, that process again was something they were really helpful with. I remember someone, I can't remember who, said you can't have a two-legged stool. And so when we were thinking about that mission, we really just thought about, okay, what are going to be the three pillars of PEAX? And those things you just mentioned, providing opportunities for others to get out, have meaningful experiences in the outdoors, supporting conservation efforts and improving access to public lands. We just really felt like those were three things that worked well together and supported, this community that we love so much. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm guessing you're not still full-time employed in the financial world.
No, I'm not. I went in when we saw, the business start to take off. I went all in. I was so sick, Corey, of climbing corporate ladders and trying to get ahead in corporate America that when I saw this really was viable, I just said, forget all that. It was stressful. It took me away from my family a lot. And I just thought, here's my opportunity. This is my chance. I'm going to just bail and give this a go and put my whole heart and soul into it. And hopefully it works. And so far, so good.
That's awesome. That's the American entrepreneur dream right there. That's the story that so many of us have been through, that, tired of whether it's corporate, whether it's long hours, whether it's a job we don't like, there's no meaning in it, but there's something that comes along that aligns with a passion or a spark. And it's a cool story to hear.
Yeah.
And your family, I'm sure, probably wishes you'd go back to work now instead of being at home and always available. And
yeah, I mean, it's what's interesting is we were running it out of the house for the first 2 years basically, and the garage was just getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and then it started flowing into the house and the kitchen table and the living room coffee table, and my wife, 6 months ago, I think, bless her heart, she's the most supportive person on the planet. She has from day one just been like, you really need to do this, and this is something that I see you are so happy doing that you just got to go for it. And it's been awesome. But 6 months ago, she did finally start going, you got to get out of the house. You got to go find a warehouse. You got to do something. So, actually just a few months ago, we got our first warehouse, and it's, for those of you that are listening in the Bozeman area, if you know where Birch Barrel is, just off of kind of Jackrabbit and Baxter, we're right next door to the Birch Barrel location. And we've got a warehouse space and a little showroom up front, and we're still working on trying to get the showroom finished up, but we're super excited about it. And I finally, gave my wife her house back, so she's happy about that.
It was the same story for me when I started. We were shipping gear out of our closet. Like, I had a full office set up in our bedroom and had all of the shelving and everything in our closet was the home to all the gear that we would ship. And yeah, it was a nightmare, but sometimes that's how you have to start.
Yeah, it really is. You just have to, you think of any great business, right? Even you go back to like Apple computers or whatever, and you see those old photographs of them sitting in a garage somewhere, right? And
Yep.
There's businesses that go out and raise a bunch of money and, have a lot of capital, and they can start that way, which is great for them. But I think there's really something to be said for the entrepreneur who's willing to just be scrappy, be nimble, and just make it work with what he's got and figure it out, and just slowly, piece by piece, put it together and grow over time. And I just have a lot of respect for people that do that. So.
Absolutely. So we've got we've got 3 different models of the trekking poles right now. What other products are available through PEAX equipment?
Yeah, so we came out with our gators, our Storm Castle gator last year. And our focus with the gator, again, one of those products that's kind of out there. It's been there forever. And you think about, a gator, and you probably think, how can you really improve upon the gator much? But we really, we had heard horror stories of gators, and people going, man, I just blow through gators all the time. And so with our Stormcastle gator, we really just tried to focus on three things. It was durability, number one, protection, number two, and all day comfort, number three. And everything we did in regards to that design, if it didn't tie into that, then we just scrapped it and forgot about it. So we put a lot of effort into, building a really durable gator. Our gators feature a Dyneema thread, which, a lot of people don't know a lot about Dyneema, but it's 12 times stronger than steel or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And, all the professional sailboat teams, and, all the sails are stitched together using a Dyneema thread. So it's super durable, super abrasive resistant. And it just is, so far they've been bulletproof. And, we added a lot of extra features. Our bootstraps have a Kevlar reinforcement in them. We added a medial kick plate on the instep of the gator that's a Hypalon material, which is the same material that's used to make the military's rubber rafts and things like that. So anywhere where we felt like we could just beef up that gator and make it really durable and provide a lot of protection, we just did that. My favorite feature really is actually the buckle system up at the top. It's kind of a unique gatekeeper cam lock combination, and it allows you to cinch that strap down, lock it in place, and then use the gatekeeper to just do a quick on and off of the buckle, so that you never really have to adjust the buckle, in the future. You just leave it where it's at, use the gatekeeper, lock it in place, and it's good to go. But those have been really well received. We were actually pretty surprised at how well they've done. The only question we keep getting asked is, are you going to come out with more colors, right? Like everybody.
That was my first question to you. I remember I got them and used them on a shed trip. And when I got back, you said, well, any feedback? And I said, yeah, are you going to make them in Ranger Green?
So, yeah, we are. And it's a process, right? We really we knew black went with everything. So we started with black, and we just wanted to see if they'd sell. It was kind of like the trekking pole experiment, right? Like we built it. I remember placing that first order for trekking poles and getting a little puckered at like, that's a lot of money. Is this going to work? And then gators were the same way. We placed a pretty big order, and we thought, are these going to sell? And I think literally within 2 months, we sold out of the first run of gators, and we just felt like, okay, yep, here we go. So yes, we'll be coming out with more colors, probably like a Loden green, kind of an earthy tone, and then, maybe a tan color or a gray. I think the Loden green will be probably the next color that we come out with. But
if my vote counts for anything, that would be my vote. So
there you go. Okay. Well, that's where we're going to focus. So
no, and I loved the fit around the boot, and that's really why I wear gaiters, is to keep water out coming in from above. Your pant legs get wet, it soaks into your sock and goes into your boot, and your feet are wet all day.
Sure.
So you wear a gaiter up below the knee, and it eliminates most of that when you're walking through wet grass. Your pant leg doesn't get wet, which keeps the sock and the boot dry. But then we do a lot of stream and creek and even river crossings, especially in the spring.
Right.
And most of the time we aren't taking waders or anything with us, and so being able to keep that water out. And it seems like inevitably, just the design of most gators, they don't clamp around the boot enough to make a seal and keep water out. And that's, wearing the Stormcastle gators this spring, I had no issues with water getting in from anywhere. My feet were dry all day with several creek crossings and walking in wet conditions. And so it's one of those things that, are they essential? No. But if your feet are dry, you hike a lot farther, a lot longer, and a lot more comfortable. And, It's
Yeah.
kind of like the trekking poles. I don't seem to hardly go. And for me, even in early season archery for elk hunting, I wear gaiters now just to
Yeah.
keep dust and dirt and weeds from getting down in my boot. And it's just,
Yeah.
I wear a gaiter pretty much anytime I'm out doing anything in the outdoors.
Yeah. I'm same way. And so far, they've been pretty bulletproof for us. We've been really pleased with the overall response that we've received. And the thing I love to hear the most actually is a lot of people will say, "Man, I put them on and I just totally forgot that I was even wearing them."
Yeah.
Which is what you want to hear, right? You want the gear to do its job, protect you, but the comfort level that when you can tell that, or when you can't tell that they're even on, is just that's perfect for us. And we just thought that, yep, we hit it. So
Yep. What else is can we talk about future
yeah,
ideas and products?
yeah. Well, we can pull the curtain back a little bit.
So I was going to say, because I'm taking the trekking poles and the gaiters to Alaska with me. We're leaving. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll probably be on our way there. But we're heading to Alaska elk hunting, and the trekking poles and the gaiters aren't the only PEAX equipment that I'll be taking with me.
That's right. So we've been like I said earlier, we've been working on a lot of things around the backcountry campsite, and probably the staple product in everybody's backpack when you get in the backcountry that you have to have is some kind of a shelter, right? And so we've been in development for a couple years now of a single walled TP shelter that you're going to take with you and test out. You're probably taking it to one of the worst places on the planet to test, but it'll be a good test, right?
Oh man, if it survives this trip, it'll be worthy.
Yeah. So we've gone through about 3 generations of prototypes on this particular teepee. We've got a couple other models as well, shelters that are going to incorporate our trekking poles. And again, as I kind of mentioned, we're trying to take a system approach, right? So all of our products, we want to work together in some capacity. And so, with our teepee in particular, there's a really unique feature that integrates our trekking poles into the teepee, but not as the center pole. And that's all I'll say about it for now. But it's really cool. We think it's kind of another game-changing approach to, teepee structures, and we're excited about it. We're super excited about it. So, that's a product that's coming out. Of course, if you have a teepee, you got to have a stove for those late season, colder weather environments. And so we're working on a ultralight titanium stove for the TP.
Not even late season. I'll
Well,
where we're heading next week, early season, we're relying on a stove. So
that's true.
It's just going to be such a wet and cooler and windy environment that we really have to have a way to dry out each day. So super excited to put the TP and a stove to the test in the backcountry of Alaska.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, regardless of the outcome, I think we're going to get such valuable feedback from your experience out there. But we're pretty confident that it's ready for a field test. But again, it's like trekking poles, right? Why would we send them to the guys that go to the worst places? But it needs that test, and we're pretty confident that it's going to perform pretty well. So.
And I think it speaks to your other product too, that we're willing to take it to a place like that, knowing that if it does completely mass fail, we're hosed. So we have the confidence that it won't mass fail, and obviously, I mean, it's going to be its first test in a brutal environment like that. So there's probably going to be some feedback, but that's exciting to me to be able to have a hand in trying out new things and be able to say, hey, we had 60-mile-an-hour winds all night. A teepee probably isn't the best wind-proof, or as far as the design of it, to be wind resistant. And but I think from what I've done, the research I've done, the studying I've done, really they are pretty well designed. You don't have the flat wall that is going to stand, directly against the wind. It's going to allow the wind to hit and kind of angle off of it. And so it'll be fun.
We took a kind of a unique approach to some of the guy out points and tying guy out points together, which has never really been done before, at least that we've ever seen. And so, we had a big storm that blew through here in Bozeman a week ago or whatever, and we had about 60-mile-an-hour gusts, and I was really nervous to go drive out and check the TP that next morning. But we got out there and looked at it, and it looked like it hadn't even moved. So we think that this new approach to kind of the guy outs is going to work really well. We're super excited about that. So that's where that's at. In regards to other products, again, backcountry campsite, that's where we're focused. And, we're kind of taking the approach of let us help you get to camp and let us help you establish camp. And, like our gators, we're really, there's the three things that we want to focus on, and that's durability, protection, and comfort. We think that, if you got a really durable product that's going to last and withstand whatever conditions the backcountry can throw at it, it's going to keep you out there longer. If you're protected, you're going to stay out there longer. And if you're comfortable, you're going to stay out there longer. So that's really our philosophy around designing product, is just, if we can check the boxes on those three things, then we feel like we have a win.
Definitely. And one thing that you didn't mention in any of that so far has been very pleasant for me is, the comfort of carrying some of the stuff. The trekking poles are super lightweight.
Right.
This teepee and stove system, when you told me the weight of it, I thought that's lighter than my, 2 or 3 man backpacking tent, just a small little tent that you can't even stand up in. You have to duck down to put a shirt on in the morning. And some of the weights of these things are just incredibly light. So, it's going to resonate with hunters for sure. We're always looking to shave a couple ounces here and there and not have to sacrifice quality and comfort. So it's a good combination.
Yeah, and we knew that there's obviously a weight threshold. There's lighter products out there on the market, obviously, but there's that durability component too that we were just like, there's a real balance there that you have to strike between durability and weight. But we also know that, if you're too heavy, it's just too heavy and people aren't going to, want it. And so, we're always trying to balance those two things of, well, how light can we go, but still be really durable? So.
Very cool. So what's on your docket for the fall? Where are you going to be testing gear, and what are your elk season plans?
Yeah, well, we're super excited. You just announced it on social media, and we're super excited to be part of Destination Elk this year. And Brandon and I have been really busy trying to scout a new area. I was telling you before we started the podcast that we've hunted the same areas around Bozeman for so many years that never really had to do e-scouting. It's one of those things I've just been like, we know where we're going to hunt and there's elk there. So I'm not going to waste time trying to find a new area. It's always, we've been successful. But when I started talking about this with my brother, you could see his mind start going, and I don't think he was really too comfortable with us taking a cameraman into our coveted honey holes. And so, we agreed that we'll leave those areas sacred and we won't, disclose that, but we'll go find a new area. And so, we've done some hunting kind of just randomly, spring bear, things like that in different areas. And we had kind of located a spot that we thought would be really good for the fall and elk hunting, and spent basically the last 2 months e-scouting and putting a little bit of boots on the ground in those areas. And we're excited to try a new area and just get out and learn some new country. And it's a rough year to probably do that with, the drought and the conditions, but that'll just make it, I think all that more special in the end of if we're successful, which we expect to be and hope to be, that we were able to do something totally new and explore new country and have a new experience. And for Brandon and I, as kind of a father-son team, it's going to be a great opportunity to just be together and bond as family and hopefully get into a bunch of elk. So that, we're super excited to number one, be a part of Destination Elk this year, and number two, have this new experience. So we think we're going to have to adapt our style a little bit more than what we normally do. We're very similar to your style in regards to hunting normally, and always just putting on the miles, trying to find that bull that wants to play. And but this year we might have to adapt a lot more than what we normally do. So we're just excited about it.
So what's going to cause you to adapt, or how are you thinking you're going to have to adapt?
I think just, not knowing the area as well, not knowing kind of where these elk are going to, hold up and pocket themselves with the conditions. We might have to, I say sit water. I'll never sit water all day, but there might be times where we might have to change a little bit and, find those pockets of water that exist and kind of focus on those a little bit more, or really good feed areas. Those are all things that you normally would focus on, I think, as an elk hunter. But, normally we're just trying to go find that bugling bull, establish a setup and call that bull into that setup. And this year, we might change those tactics a little bit. We might be a little more stealthy and, trail the herd a little bit more until we figure out kind of what their patterns are and where their bedding areas really are. And we haven't really wanted to go in and put a lot of pressure on these elk in this area that we're focusing on ahead of season. So, we've done a lot of e-scouting and just looking at the area through Google Earth, and then we've done a little bit of boots on the ground, and we're just gonna play it by ear. And we've picked out kind of 2 or 3 different hunting areas that we can hit from kind of the same base camp area. And we'll just, if one area is not producing, we'll move to the next and just hope for the best.
Yeah. No, it's for any of the listeners that haven't heard what we're doing for Destination Elk this year. Destination Elk is our annual elk season day-by-day video series that we do on the Elk 101 YouTube channel. And it's been, primarily Donnie and I just kind of following us around throughout our season. And we've incorporated, Dave Brinker. We hunted Roosevelt's with him one year, so he was part of it. And then Corey and Shannon from Angry Spike, they've been on the podcast before, and we've hunted with them a couple times, chasing Roosevelt's. And then Mark and Jeff Skousen, the twin brothers out of Utah, they've been involved. But this year we thought, we really like the TV show Alone. And so we thought, we're going to try to incorporate something similar to that. It's not going to be a competition at all, but we are going to have different teams in different camps for the same amount of days. And each episode of Destination Elk is going to basically bounce around from camp to camp and just check in on the action of each camp on the corresponding days. So we've got 7 teams, so there'll be 14 hunters total. Each team will have a cameraman, and they'll be hunting for an 8-day period. And I think we're covering like 5 states this year. We've got Montana, I think Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, and then Donnie and I are heading to Alaska to chase elk. So there'll be a pretty good range of hunting styles, of different terrains, of different personalities, and it's going to be pretty cool. I think, keeping it, there'll be no competition, no contest at all. It's just more of a varied education instead of just following Donnie and I along.
Right.
You get to see a lot of different hunting styles and different personalities. And, you look at Randy Newberg's, he's one of the teams with one of his camera guys. And those guys, the 2 of them are probably the most, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. They have a lot of personality.
They do.
So
yeah.
there's going to be no shortage of of personality in that camp. Bo Beatty, who everyone loves Bo and his llamas. He's hunting with Marcus, who's another of Randy's camera guys. And then you and your son, Brandon. And then we've got Corey and Shannon from Angry Spike, and Mark and Jeff Skousen. And then Donnie and I. And then we're bringing in the guy that I share an office with, Tyler Crockett. He and his hunting partner, Lenny, they have Pure Elevation Productions. They do some YouTube stuff as well. So got a varied group of hunters who are very successful, but just a cool group of guys who love sharing, who are all passionate about public land and public land access and conservation, and just a stellar group of guys. I'm super excited to see how it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, we're super stoked to see everybody else's experience too. I mean, and when you told me you were kind of patterning this after that Alone series on the History Channel, I'd never watched that show before, and I went out there and I literally after the first episode I was hooked, and I think I watched, I don't know how many seasons they have, 6 or 7 seasons or whatever it is, but
just finished 8. Yeah.
8. Wow. So I just was like, man, this is going to be awesome, and what a great format to follow, and I think that it's going to be really engaging for your audience to be able to see all these different hunting groups and how they approach elk hunting, and I think it'll be a super educational experience and just a really great time.
Yeah, we've got Randy. We talked something early on about it'd be cool to have like a rookie team, somebody who's never elk hunted before, or someone who's never killed an elk before, and we just kind of mentioned it, that how cool that would be. We have gotten more emails through the Elk Talk podcast email route than you could imagine, with people volunteering themselves or suggesting people, and it's I think we've had several female hunters that are like, hey, this is you can't just have a bunch of guys hunting, you need to include a female group. And so if this goes over like we're hoping it does, we've got some pretty cool plans for next year already that hopefully we'll be able to implement and include some of those suggestions.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to be awesome for several years to come. And I was at an event last night that my brother showed up to, and he had seen the post on social media kind of announcing it, and he was like, wow, that looks like it's going to be awesome. And I think the excitement leading into it, and just the variety of terrain and elk species and everything else that people are going to be able to enjoy through this series is just it's going to be so well received, and I think it's going to just take off on you for sure.
Yeah, well, you just look at, last year was a slow year. Our first 8 days of season of hunting here in Idaho, we only heard elk bugle like on 3 days. And I mean, we were showing grouse, we were shooting grouse, and that was an episode because there was no action. And it's hard to do a day by day series sometimes throughout the whole season, because there are stretches where it's hard to get into the action. So you just think about having 7 different camps, hunting for 8 days. Somebody's going to be into some serious action every day. So every episode's going to be packed, hopefully full of action. So we're gonna hunt 8 days. So the morning of day 1 will be 1 episode. The evening of day 1 will be another episode. We've got an intro episode. We'll have a conclusion episode. We've got some bonus episodes. So we're planning on 18 to 20 episodes just of that 8-day stretch. And then, we've got all of our other hunts that we'll still film, and we'll incorporate them, maybe into a Destination Elk bonus series or something at the end. But a lot of good stuff coming for sure.
Yeah, super exciting.
So one of the things, and I know you switching areas to protect the sacredness of an area you've hunted forever. Something we run into, all the time, just when you're filming hunts, it's hard because you either are showing too much scenery and people know where it is, or you aren't able to share some of the incredible scenery that we get to see. We were hunting in Wyoming a few years ago, and it was some of the most epic elk country I've ever seen. Everything was changing colors. It was frosty in the morning, just these huge mountain peaks, just absolutely beautiful. And we couldn't show any of it because
Right.
it would have gave away exactly where we are.
Right.
But part of it that comes into play also is permits. We have to have film permits for
Yeah.
every team in every national forest. And, we've got, I just sent the list over to verify that we had everything covered. I want to say we have like 12 different film permits, which when you look at an average of $150 per day for 8 days, for 12 different permits, it gets
Yeah.
incredibly expensive. And it also, locks you into where you can and can't hunt sometimes. And
Yeah. I
so
mean, we were going through that process with Randy. Randy was helping us with ours, and he called me and he asked a bunch of information, and I gave it to him. I was trying to be, as broad and vague as I could about our, and he's kind of like, well, I need to be a little more specific than that. And I was like, okay. And then I thought we were good. And then a few days later, Dale, one of his, guys called me and he's like, I need to get some more specific information about where you're going to be hunting. And so I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I gave him one. He's like, are you going to be going this far down this certain drainage? And I'm like, well, maybe. I don't know why. And he's like, well, if you do that part just drops into a different ranger district, and we got to get a whole new film permit for just that little part of this basin that you might hunt in. And we'd
Yep.
like to avoid that if possible. And I was like, man, this process is crazy.
it is.
So
Yeah, and for us, we're doing the same. We're hunting a brand new area. Donnie and I have never been to the area before. We just, I've hunted the same area in Idaho for close to 25 years now, and that's the only unit in Idaho I've ever had an elk tag in. And you get kind of, stuck in a rut, and you're familiar enough with it, you can always find elk, but it's
Right.
just, it hasn't been the same experience. And so I got looking, and me being a engineer nerd and a numbers nerd, I took the Go Hunt insider information to a whole nother level, and I
There you
actually
go.
broke down every unit in Idaho and put a weighted scale on what was important, the priorities. So bull to cow ratio, success rates, percentage of 6-point bulls, all these different things. I didn't just look at it. I said, okay, if the success rate is 30% or higher, this unit gets 3 points. If it's 20 to 30%, it gets 2 points. If it's 10 to 20%, it gets 1 point. If it's under 10%, it gets 0. And did the same thing for bull to cow ratios and everything, and then added up the points for each unit and found out that the unit that we've been hunting is like number 43 out of 70 some units in
Oh,
Idaho.
wow.
And it's like, we aren't even
Wow.
hunting an average, it's below average unit. And so using those numbers, I looked at the top 10, and obviously don't want to go to the top 1 or 2 because other
Right.
people are already there. But looking at the top 10, there were a couple that really stood out. And so we're excited to go somewhere new. But it's the same thing. We have to stay, even within the same unit, we have to stay on one side of a ridge and can't cross over it for the film permit reasons, because it changes to another national forest district. And so it's just, there's there are complications for sure. But at the end of the day, it's incredibly rewarding to be able to share the experiences with so many like-minded people involved this year who are passionate about getting other people out there and doing it, encouraging, inspiring, motivating other people to get out and hunt, with the hope that those other people will not just take from the pie, but add to the pie in conservation efforts and in working to support organizations like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, who do so much to build that pie bigger. Their whole goal is to ensure not just a population of elk, but a huntable population of elk that is increasing habitat, so that the landscape can hold more quantities, so that we can support more hunters. And it's just,
Yeah.
we've said it so many times, we just have to have a unified voice, and the bigger that voice is, especially in today's political landscape, it's just important to have more people on our side.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I've really had my eyes open to over the last 2 years that we've kind of started to try to build this brand. Is just that before I was really pretty close-minded and thought the pie's only so big, right? And I've got my little slice of the pie, and I don't want anybody else to have it. But the reality is, you just keep making a bigger pie, right? Your slice might get a little thinner, but the pie gets bigger, and so you really still have the same. And it's just one of those things where I think the more people we can get involved and the more people supporting it, the longer it's going to last for us and for our kids. And it's just super critical and important for everybody to get involved and be engaged and have a voice. I was listening to a previous podcast that you and Randy did, and he had just gotten back from Helena, Montana, some legislative session that he had there. And some guy drove from Glasgow, Montana, 6 hours to go and have his voice heard for 2 minutes.
Yep.
And, I was like, wow, that's a great example. And I'm only an hour and a half away from Helena. So what's my problem, right? Why don't I get in the truck and go there? But I think we all can do better and have a voice and help protect what we love to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Bryce, where can people find out more about PEAX equipment, and where can they buy a incredible set of trekking poles? The Z poles are my favorite. They're the ones that. How compact are they? 14 inches?
Yeah, 14 inches. The Z poles are 14 inches. My favorite are the Elites. They're not quite as compact, but they're a little more versatile. I like to use my trekking poles for more than just hiking. I use them for glassing on top of with my binos. I prop out tent walls occasionally. I use them for a lot of different things, propping up my pack when I'm sitting there. And so the Elites are my favorite. They're a little longer at 24 inches, but a lot, all the same features as the Z poles. And but yeah, people can go to peaksequipment.com. Again, that's PEAX equipment.com. But if you happen to go to PEAX, like you would spell it correctly, it'd get you there too. So it just redirects you. But peaksequipment.com, or we're on social media as peaks_equip. And that's the best way to kind of reach out to us and talk with us.
And are you getting product into retail space? What's your plan there?
We are. We've got 2 dealers that we work with now. Go Hunt is one that we are partnered with now. Black Ovis is one that we're partnered with. And I hear rumors that pretty soon all of our stuff will show up in the Elk 101 store. So we're super excited about that as well.
I checked it this morning and it's there. So
it is. It's awesome. Fantastic.
So the good folks at Go Hunt manage the Elk 101 store for us, and pretty much any product that they get in transfers over to the Elk 101 store. So got it in both places: GoHunt.com, their gear shop, or the Elk 101 store at elk101store.com. So definitely check that out. 3 different models of trekking poles, the Stormcastle Gator, and depending on whether Donnie and I survive in Alaska or not, there may be a teepee tent coming in the future.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Well, Bryce, I appreciate you agreeing to come on. Randy and I, this time of year is so tough to. Yeah. Randy starts hunting 1st of August. I'm gone pretty much from September through mid-October, and so we really struggle sometimes to get some podcast episodes out. But you and I were talking, and I said, hey, why don't you come on and join us on a podcast episode? And Randy's I think he's antelope hunting now. I think he's done with his Nevada mule deer hunt, and I think he's on to antelope now. So.
Yeah, you can never keep track of that guy. He's he's always going. So
I do not envy his fall schedule. There's some fall schedules I envy, and I look at it and say, I wish I could do this a little more. I wish I could go do that. Yeah. Randy's schedule is one that it would wear out a young person.
Yeah, I agree. So, anyways, well, thanks for letting us come on the podcast today. We're super excited to be a part of what you're doing and working with you, and looking forward to see the outcome of your season this fall. So
absolutely, likewise. When are you guys heading out for your archery elk hunt?
The 9th.
The 9th.
Yeah, we're hunting that new area the 9th through the 18th, and like I said, hopefully we'll get 2 bulls down. If not, we'll go back to our honey hole.
That's right. Awesome. Well, best of luck to you, and
Thanks, Corey.
I'm
You
sure
too.
we'll keep in touch, and we'll be excited to watch the action here in a few months.
Sounds good. Take care, Corey.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.